Hello and welcome to another Friday afternoon here at Go Narrative. Super excited to have you here today for another homepage teardown. If you've joined us before, you'll know what we do. If not, if this is your first time, welcome. But what we do is we take the power of 3D story and we have a look at that first best foot forward that every company puts out on the web, and that is the homepage. And we have a look at it and we have some suggestions on how the one that we look at today could be better. I like to make these streams as difficult as possible for myself and to take as many risks as possible. So today we're even going to pick the company live on the stream. That'll be a lot of fun. And we're going to have a look at it and we're going to figure out what could maybe be different. But before we get there, let's take a moment to enjoy this Friday moment wherever you are and whenever you are, if you're watching this as a recording. And we're going to get stuck into what we love to do at Go Narrative, and that is to help people with storytelling. And it's not just storytelling. So I say storytelling to reel you in because it's a common language that we share, the common language that we understand together. But for me and for Go Narrative, it's deeper than the storytelling. It's about the story. What do I mean by that? Quite simply put, storytelling is the expression, the verb, if you will, and story is the thing, the noun. And if we don't have a good thing to express, well, maybe we shouldn't express it. That, my friends, is as simple as it gets. The story of storytelling has to be good. Now, that's when you're worried about storytelling. But the thing is, as soon as you start thinking about this idea of this thing called story, you start to realize that it's the gateway to even more power, unlimited power. Story is our brain's operating system, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So before we talk about websites or startups or Series A or you name it, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the core of this thing called story. Now, why should you care? Why do I care? I care because of comments like this. Helping people feel empowered, helping people achieve a sense of clarity. That is why we do what we do. It's why I do what I do. And it's this power, not just in communication, but in problem solving too. And it all starts with our own story, because it's the perfect one to practice on, quite frankly. And when we focus on that, we build the skills we need to understand our team story, our organization story, our company story. And when we do that, we remove roadblocks to the things we're trying to get done in this world, which is ultimately what it's all about. And business is just one of those things, right? The expression of ourselves to make some money in this capitalist society, and to do it with ideally as much fun and as least friction as possible. And the power of 3D story touches on all of that. And that is why I find this stuff so exciting. And it's why I call it the power of 3D story. But before we talk about the power of 3D story or the websites or any of that kind of stuff, I want to take you back a little bit further. I want us to go all the way back into the mists of time. Can you guess what year we're going to be going back to? The year is 1978. And it was in 1978 that my parents and I had just moved from the south of England to the north of England. It was a new job for my dad, a new town. It was my dad's dream home, a Georgian town house. But it was crumbling, falling apart. The only safe place for a baby like me was the attic. Not just 3 floors up to the attic, but there's a cellar as well. And when there's a hole right outside the bedroom door, my bedroom door that goes all the way 4 floors down, you need to make sure that that door is locked. And so it was. And it's true, the attic bedroom was a refuge. Yes, there was a cot in there and stuffed animals and blankets, and it was a safe, comfortable place. It was peaceful, but I didn't want peace. I wanted people. I wanted connection. And then on top of all of this, my mum was pregnant again. But it gets even better. The job that had moved us up there, in all of that chaos, my dad lost it. He was laid off. So the chaos only continued. My mother, the anchor, was stretched thin, doing her best. Emotionally, she was just torn in all directions. And for little Matthew, that translated into emotional unpredictability. Easy for me to say, emotional unpredictability. And that is where it all started. That is where I started to develop this core of my earliest senses of what became my superpower, if you will, and that was pattern recognition. And it looks like we might be having some hardware challenges as well with the stream here, so that's rather unfortunate. If you are getting some stuttering of the video and the audio, it looks like some of the changes we made to the workstation might not be panning out how we had hoped. Now, that pattern recognition is vital for story and understanding stories. What is the pattern, right? Reading the stories around me. That was where it started. Didn't start with the telling. Now, I did try and tell stories in whatever way a 6-month-old can, with various forms of crying, no doubt. But it was because I didn't want to get sent to the attic, right? And that was my first lesson in story. Not words, not fairy tales, survival. And if you fast forward, yet again, if we jump forward in time a little bit to 1986, I started experimenting with another form of storytelling, keeping a diary. And then just a few short years later, in 1990, that became something of a daily habit. And that habit, I still have it. I've never stopped. Every day since February 14th, 1990, I've kept a diary. Apart from a few late nights, should we say, at university, it's been every day. And I recently learned that there's actually fewer people that have kept a daily handwritten diary for 35 years that have got Olympic gold or climbed Everest. I don't say that to brag, just as proof of the amount of time that I have spent trying to understand the patterns of the stories around me. I've lived story, I've written story, I've studied story, and I've tried to make sense of story, right? And then we've got another time jump coming up here, and that time jump brings us to 2012. I landed my dream job, chief storyteller at a Microsoft business division. And when I got there, I did what we all do, right? I Googled with Bing for tools, templates, frameworks, but there were none, not for business storytelling, only for entertainment frameworks. And the ones that were for business were really just using entertainment storytelling frameworks. And so I ended up panicking, and I don't want you to panic, and you don't have to, because I've already been through this. And so you don't have to do all of the learning that I had to do. And I panicked because I looked at places like The Hero's Journey, and I don't want you to look to The Hero's Journey for help in business storytelling. It's too complicated, it's not really appropriate, and it's not the only way of storytelling. It's not the only thing of story, because story is so much more fundamental. Story is our operating system. And so The Hero's Journey, that's just kind of one expression of storytelling. It's not even the core of story. And I also don't want you to rely on overly simple frameworks like beginning, middle, and end, which is so simple, it's abstract. It's like, well, what do I put in the beginning? What do I put in the middle? What do I put at the end? Telling me beginning, middle, and end is pretty useless, right? So I became an interpreter of story. And it was great, right? I was getting paid for it, so it didn't matter. I didn't need the frameworks after that panic settled down. And I started to get invited to help other teams across Microsoft as well. And that's where I had the first dreams of what would one day become Go Narrative. But it wasn't until tragedy struck in 2015 that I really woke up. Everything shifted. Within 6 months, I'd resigned from Microsoft, spent a year at a marketing agency, learned how to run a business, double their revenue, and then in 2017, Go Narrative was born. And that is when I truly started to figure it all out, and to figure out how I could come up with some ways of working, frameworks, if you will, to help with that panic. And that, my friends, is when I found Goldilocks. And this is what I mean when I say it's not about storytelling, and it's about story. It's not about entertainment. It's our operating system. It's how we survive, how we connect, how we communicate, how we adapt. It's our operating system, and because we've all got one, it's our API. It's the way we connect. It's a communications channel that connects all of our brains. It's how we understand the world and how we share what we know about the world. So I've gone super deep on this, right? Into the neuroscience, the social psychology, therapy, why, asking why, and the core of who we are, that driving power, which is why I'm a why certified coach, because story changes the world, and I believe in using it for better. You know, some folks might use it for nefarious purposes, but I believe in using it for good. And I'm sure you do too, right? And you want to use it as a tool. That's why you're here today, right? You want to find as much success as possible, and you're using all the tools at your disposal. And you've got this inkling that this thing called storytelling you've heard about, that could be helpful. And it is. So where does it all start? It starts with heart. It starts with wanting something. It starts with you wanting something, or your customer wanting something, or your investor or a VC wanting something. That is where it starts, right? And life is like that. Whether you're thirsty and you want a sip of water, or you want a new job, or you want a new car, it all starts with a desire. And sometimes that is a positive thing, and sometimes it's just reduce a negative thing. If you have a splinter in your finger, you have a desire to get that splinter out of your finger, don't you? Now, if you don't have any tweezers, that's a difficulty. That is something standing in the way. And it just so happens that it seems that things always stand in our way, don't they, right? We don't always get what we want. Okay, so if I'm thirsty, not much stood in my way there, but not making a sound of slurping into the microphone, which is right here, that's a difficulty with that. So I would slow down and be very careful, right? So even in the smallest of things that we do in life, there's all of these little parts of it. And then, how do we get to what we want? That difficulty that stands in the way of our desire, it's a condition, right? It's a thing that's in the way. It's still all about the heart. It's still all about what we want. And even the next step in this, which is the untangling of the knot, to get to that, which is, there's a French word for that called denouement, that is still about getting to what we want. So if you can just remember that, it's all about what we want. That's it. It's so simple and so clear. And then there's a barrier, and we've got to get through that barrier. We've got to figure a way through that barrier. If you're thinking about your customers, you're entering a new market, what do they want? What's standing in their way? How can you help them get through that? That is what this is all about. And it's why I love doing what I do, because it's all about helping you get through the barrier of not understanding the power of story to using it to connect with your investors, to connect with your customers, to connect with your collaborators, your partners too, whoever it is that you're looking to work with. And that is the power of 3D Story. And that's why I call it the power of 3D Story. And it just so happens that it not only helps you see your story from all angles, it's 3Ds too. Desire, difficulty, and denouement, that fancy French word for the untangling of the knot. Now, all of this is what we're going to use now when we go and we have a look at some poor unsuspecting company's homepage. Now, the homepage is important because it is our best foot forward to the world, right? The digital world, it's out there. And people might know about us, they might not know about us. It just so happens that it's highly likely that there are people in the world that have never heard of your company before. And even if they're in the market for what you offer, they may never have heard of your company before. So you've got to talk to them, right? And you've got to talk to people who do know what you do. So you've got to make sure that you're providing a connection point for that. So we're going to switch over here and we're going to have a look at a company. And like I said at the beginning, going to fly by the seat of my pants on this one for fun and take a little bit of risk. Here we've got ChatGPT 03 open, and I'm going to say, come up with a short list of companies in Seattle who are post Series A or just about to be most likely with ambitions to get Series B in AI, machine learning, technical SaaS, fintech, health tech. Let's say short list, let's do a dozen. Dozen, please. Let's see what it comes back with, shall we? So what we're doing here is we're picking a specific type of company in a specific geographical region, and we are going to choose one of those companies and we're going to pick on their website. So as this is working to come up with who our potential hit list could be, I want to say to you, who is this as of yet undetermined company, if you're responsible for the website, I'll say apologies in advance. Of course, I'm joking a bit because why would I be apologizing? A, because I'm doing it intentionally, but B, you're actually going to get a benefit out of this. We're going to share some ideas with you on how you can up your game. Now, I also want to say, I know people who ran some of the world's biggest websites. I've run company websites. I run a company. I'm responsible for a company website. And you got a lot on your plate. Even if your job is purely the website, you're trying to juggle a lot of things. You're trying to put the right stuff on there. You're trying to make sure it aligns with the things that you've heard from your leadership team. Or maybe you're the founder and you're mandating what goes on the website. And you're worried about all sorts of things, including investor communications and expanding to new markets. And maybe you've got a new product or a new service or a new capability that you're adding to your product, so you want to add in to the mix. So here we go. We've got a list has come up here, and we've got some options to pick from. So let's see. Let's go ahead. 25, 25, 25, 24. So Series A, if you hit Series A in 24, you probably are pretty well on the way to thinking about Series B. You've probably started making some changes. You've probably already implemented some of the changes you're looking to make. And that would probably be a good place for us to start. Series B, 11 million, that seems a bit low. That would have been more in the sort of 25 to 30. Or is that what they're going for? Expanded new car product. Okay, so let's go ahead and pick recurrent. EV battery health analytics for used car market. Interesting. So here, their target markets could be a mix of car manufacturers or potentially dealers, mechanics, new services entirely that's springing up, tech-savvy users who maybe would be in the early market, right? The early adopters, recurrent, and it looks like we've got the website. Okay, recurrent, buy, drive, and sell electric cars positively. A bit of a play there on current. Recurrent is a platform that provides real-world data analysis. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull this up. What have we got here? EV shoppers, research your next EV. EV owners, connect to the platform. Dealerships, answer common questions. Anybody who's been on the stream before knows that I'm looking for a couple of things when I go to a website. One is people, because we're still talking to people. And I know AI is increasing and we're using it to go and do research, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's going to land with a person. Dealerships, that's not a person. Somebody at a dealership, maybe somebody specific. EV owners, that's a proxy for a type of person, right? And same with shoppers. Okay. The other thing that I tend to look for is emotions and feelings. Are we connecting with people? What do I see here? I see driving EV value with real world data, trusted by 30,000 electric vehicle owners and dealerships. Trusted by social proof, something that we're all told to do on our websites, right? Shoppers, owners, dealers. And we scroll down, we've got a video. When it's time, boost your car's value with EV insights. So clearly some of the conversations at Recurrent have been around the value of cars, right? Value goes down because you've got a used battery and nobody wants to buy it. So they're thinking about the things that the person potentially selling the car is caring about, or even buying. And that's it. So that's the website. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to drop this into the Go Narrative website story teardown GPT. And we're going to see what it comes back with. So this is based on two of our frameworks, the Power 3D Story and then the Emo Pyramid. Emo Pyramid, just as a real high level, is you've got communication, there's very surface level. Then you've got communication that thinks about the motivations behind it, communication that thinks about the emotions behind those motivations, and then the final and deepest level is the feelings at the pit in the stomach, right, or waking up in a cold sweat that support the emotions, right? So going super deep, and that's what the Emo Pyramid looks like. I'll zoom in here, we'll have a look a little bit closer. So we've got visceral, okay. In the GPT's design, that the word visceral was used, and it takes it literally. Above the fold quote, EV battery health reports for every stage of ownership. It looks like it might be looking at something that's cached. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to say, also have a look at this. But that's not going to stop us from having a look. But I'm going to go ahead and actually say, take a look at this screenshot, because we've been talking about this particular one, so we want to see this. We want to see its response to what we're seeing, right? Rather than a cached version on a CDN or something. Okay. Hero image: a woman smiling while looking at her phone next to an EV charging an EV. Sunlight ease satisfaction. Driving EV value with real world data. Okay, so we've seen that, right? Physical sensation level, none. There's no reference to what this experience feels like in the body. The woman looks happy, but the copy doesn't touch the nervous system. No tension, no release. Words like value and real world data are abstract. They're, buzzword bingo words, right? No pit and stomach moment, no I've been there moment. There's nothing that's connecting us to it, right? And if we're the potential target market, we should be feeling that connection. Human difficulty identified. It's like the motivation. Generic. We're told data is involved, but not what it solves. And honestly, a comment I'd add to that would be, it's talking about the features rather than the feelings. And feelings aren't fluffy. Feelings are functional, right? That splinter in your finger, that's a feeling. Ouch. You got to do something about that. We as human beings do not act. We are not moved to act if we do not feel something. And that can be good or bad. The headline is a statement of capability, not a confrontation with a real problem. Driving value is sanitized business language. It erases the human at the center, the anxious buyer, the confused seller, the worried first-time owner. Market transformation context, company focused. Frame is we do X, not the world's changing. So that's getting a little bit into the narrative level, but we can skip down and have a look at the emo pyramid breakdown here. Level 1, that communications level, right? That high level. Data, value, trusted by. Motivation, it's implied in the subnav, but that it's not really there. Emotions suggest joy, but we're not naming it, we're not calling it out, and there's no physical sensation. 3D story framework, vaguely implied EV value, peace of mind. Difficulty is not shown at all. Where is the buyer lost in the specifications, like what they're looking for? This seller dreading a lowball offer, for example, that could be something that we could have. So then when it comes to a denouement, the untangling of the knot, there's no journey here, right? There's no way through. There's nothing learned, right? It's not just about, the denouement is not just the solution. It's not just your solution as the company providing the service or the product. In this case, with Recurrent, it's not, the denouement is not just Recurrent, right? The denouement is the experience around owning an electric vehicle is now improved. It is what they have to do along with Recurrent, even if it's silly little things like you have to have a phone, right? You have to have a mobile phone with iOS or Android on it. It's a part of that solution. And from those of you with a product marketing background will recognize that as being in like a value proposition, right? So it's the big picture of what somebody has to do. It's not just that tool that you provide. And it's all, like I said, it's also the learnings and the experience and that journey and what they take away from it, because that we can then take away from and not only potentially become customers, but share it with other people as well, potentially even becoming a quasi-evangelist, even though we haven't bought the product yet. What does our rewrite recommendation look like? Driving EV value with real world data is where we were. Okay, that's where we're coming from. 2, no more guessing games. Know your EV's battery is solid before you buy, when you sell, and every mile between. This to me doesn't feel like a headline. This feels like maybe a subhead, but we could do no guessing games or no no EV battery life guessing games, or the guessing game of EV battery life. That's going to touch on buyers, sellers, everybody, right? And then know your EV's battery is solid, or know the EV you're planning to sell or buy is solid. And then, or you could do it like it's suggested here and have that on the back end. You could argue the active imperative on that this is better, and every mile in between. So we're still playing, we're still bringing some and having some fun with the words here, like even recurrent, right? It's having some fun with it. Every mile in between is doing that as well. We're hinting at the relief, the continuity, and the fear that it replaces. So the final score, screenshot only, 8th out of 30. And we've talked about that there's a lack of antagonist, there's nothing driving the fear, being stranded in the snowstorm, losing all this value, pouring money into a money pit, sleeping easy, knowing everything's okay. So those are some ideas there. And if we were to go down, and they've got a pretty simple website, so we can do this. Remember, 16 million of Series A. Okay. There's clearly early market fit here. There's been enough investors have said, we're going to put $16 million into this. But what about Series B? Do you want $35 million? Do you want to get double that? How are you going to do it? Are you doing it? This was January 24. So it looks like there might be some work to be done. Okay, we'll go back to, and we'll drop this in, have a look below the fold. Put that in here. Any suggestions for this part? Again, this is built on our frameworks and some custom guidance that we designed for websites. We use it, and we use it to make sure that even our own website has got the types of language that we talk about here. So let's see, current copy. It's normal for EV range to decrease over time. If you've just joined, what we've been talking about is we've been talking about Recurrent's website and how story is being used. Not just storytelling, because it's not about putting episode 15 of Star Wars on here or writing the Bible of stories. It's about using this thing, the noun, story, not storytelling, the verb, but the noun, the thing. And when we look at it like that, we break it down, we can actually weave in story into our normal communications in a way that is going to connect better with human beings. And even if it's human beings using AI to do the research. So the current copy below the fold, and we just talked about what the current is. What's the translation? Batteries get worse. Don't worry, we help. Trust us. No stakes, no fear, no story, no body. Batteries get worse. Don't worry, we help. Trust us. So much of marketing, so much. Do you see why I'm finding that funny? I'll say it again and see if the penny didn't drop just yet. I'll give you a second chance. Batteries get worse. Don't worry, we help. Trust us. So much of marketing is like that, right? Here's our product. It does this thing. We're great. Trust us. Maybe throw in a few numbers around people who've already trusted us before. So that's why I was laughing there. There's no stakes. There's no fear. There's no body. There's no feeling. There's no person. There's no story, right? Physical sensation level. No one reading it clenches. No one exhales. Sudden changes. The closest thing to tension is vague. Provide transparency. Corporate speak. That's the thing that's really sad about being a startup, right? So if let's close that one. Look, all of the love and passion and life that's poured into all of these startups, right? That all find themselves on this journey where they feel like they have to communicate like people in corporations, because if you've made it to be a corporation and you're that big, then obviously you're really successful. So that's really a bit sad, because don't lose the benefit you have, the passion you have. Even if you're a tech SaaS company looking to sell to corporations, you've got something special, right? You don't have to do corporate speak. In fact, what a wonderful position to be in, right? As the founder of a startup, what a wonderful position to be in, to go and tell a story that connects with people, right? And if you're post-Series A, you've started to connect with at least some of a market. But just think about all the people you could connect with if you get your story right. Okay, so market context is still missing. So here we go, suggested rewrite, emo pyramid level 4, we're touching on the feelings. We got the from, we talked about that. So 2, remember that gut punch when your phone battery started dying before lunch? Now imagine that, but it's your car. And if you own an EV, I've owned several, and also still in both camps, internal combustion, ICE as well. But I know what they mean. Range loss is normal, but rapid decline signals deeper trouble. Recurrent tracks your EV's battery health like a vital sign. Ooh. So buyers trust it and sellers don't get steamrolled. Honestly, nobody wants to be steamrolled. That sounds painful. Ugh. Roger Rabbit, the old movie comes to mind. Why this works: gut punch, anxiety to relief, the belief, right? It might get ripped off. Communication, how do I communicate this, what it's worth? I've got some camera gear I'm thinking of selling, and it's like, how do I prove its worth? Like, even if it's got a little mark on it, if I've sent it to Canon and it's got a certificate that says this is perfect, then I want to be able to get the most I can if I sell that camera, right? So getting a fair deal. I want a fair deal. I don't want to get screwed. Difficulty though is I can't see into the battery. It's this mystery, right? It's a silent killer. And then recurrent tracks your battery life like a vital sign. And that's bringing in the bigger picture, right? Like being connected, knowing that, being able to navigate that, having that information. It's more than just the product. That's what I meant about it, the denouement not being just about the solution. And that's visceral relief, right? Oh, I want that. I'm buying the solution to the problem. And here we go. This is that foundation of the story. So final verdict, Current explains the science, but it forgets the fact that as human beings, stakes are important. And it's ultimately about getting to a place of relief, right? Want me to rewrite the entire scroll experience section by section? No, that's for another day. And recurrent, if you want to do that, that's something that is well worth taking those next steps in. Okay, what have we just talked through? What have we just enjoyed? We looked at some post-Series A companies here in the Seattle area. Beautiful sunny day in Seattle, by the way. And we picked an unsuspecting victim from that list, and we had a look at their website. And when we were looking at the website, we were looking for some key things, weren't we? We were looking for the heart of the matter, right? What does somebody want, right? In the example we used, recurrent, we had EV buyers, EV sellers, and of course, the dealerships too. So a bit of a B2C and a bit of a B2B potential in there. Quite an interesting business, actually, quite cool. And then we looked at what stands in the way, right? And we looked at how that gets untangled. But we did that whilst we looked at the recurrent website. And we asked ourselves those questions. Do we see a person that wants something? What do they want? Is it clear? And then we looked at what stands in the way. Do we feel it? Is it connecting with that level 2, 3, 4 on the emo pyramid? And then how is it being offered up to be untangled? Are we just saying, trust us, it's our product, it's great? Or is there something more to it, right? So we went through that with the recurrent website. And it all goes back to that idea of the power of 3D story. This is why this is so powerful. It's not just about storytelling. It's not just about storytelling. It's about story. And story is our operating system. And we all want stuff, and stuff always stands in the way. And then we have to find a way through that thing standing in the way to what we want. Desire, difficulty, untangle the knot, denouement. It's not just about storytelling. It's about story. And because story is our operating system, it's my operating system, it's your operating system, it's the communications channel or the API that connects us together, that is why we communicate with it. That's why stories are so interesting. It's why the act of storytelling is so interesting. And when it's done well, boom, it's entertaining. And before we knew it, human beings have run with that in movies and books, all that stuff. But story in business goes back to these fundamental precepts, these core elements. And if you can understand and start to get a handle on this, and you can then use it in everything. And I would encourage you to start with your own story. Charity starts at home, right? But remember, it all starts with that desire. Whether it's a VC that you're going to be speaking to, or it's a market you're going to be talking about or approaching, what do people want, right? And in our playbook, the Storytelling for Action playbook, in the first chapter, you get to sit down, and this is a pen and paper, spend a bit of time away from AI. You can take all your findings after that and go back and put it in. And we have been playing with some online versions, but there's something to be said about the neural stimulation that we get when we're using a pen and paper. And this is actually available, the download version you can print off is available on our website. And the first chapter is the power of 3D story. And then the book itself is available on Amazon, and it's also got it doesn't have the emo pyramid in it yet. That'll have to be the next edition because that was a relatively new edition. But it's got the MEAT framework, morals, essential emotions, and truths that we developed during COVID. It's got the TRIP storytelling methodology, which is our narrative level methodology. But it all starts with that cornerstone, which is the power of 3D story. So what next? What do I want you to do? What do I want you to take away from this? Well, first of all, always start with the heart, right? First of all, always start with heart. First of all, think about what it is that people want. What do you want? What does your team want? What does your company want? What do your investors want? What does the new market that you're going into want differently to the old market? Always start with that. And then figure out what stands in the way, and then how you help untangle that. And that is the foundation for any story you tell. But in terms of what you can do immediately, is I want you to think about what story you will tell tomorrow. Pick something you feel comfortable with. It could be a personal story. I would encourage you to think about business. You're trying to do this in business. But if you want to start somewhere super simple, think about something you did today. Who are you going to speak to on the weekend? And what story could you tell about that? Well, I really wanted to blah, 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 to do this thing. And I got up on Friday morning and I wanted to make sure that by the end of the day, I had done X. And then I thought I had everything I needed, and I started going, and it looked like everything was going to be on track. And then boom, I realized that I didn't have this one super important thing that I needed to then go and do what I wanted to do. And I had to go and figure that out. And it was really tough. And there was this thing and that thing. And oh my goodness, I ended up spending my whole day only getting as far as X or Y. And then next week, hopefully, I'll finally get around solving that problem. Okay. That's it. That's the basis of taking a story and then putting it into storytelling, right? And that's why starting with stories is so important. Not just storytelling, but story. And start with your own story, because then you can practice it. And it will also help you build empathy as you understand other people's stories. And it'll obviously then help you make better websites, better pitches for your investors, and connect with the people that can benefit from the awesome technology, the amazing product, the fantastic thing that you've invented, that you're bringing to the world. And to nail that every single time with every market that you're going after, that is magic. That is not Russian roulette. That is not rolling the dice and sometimes getting it right. This is methodical, and this is why I do what I do, because I love helping people achieve these goals, whatever your goal is. So all that's left for me this wonderful Friday afternoon is to say thank you so much for stopping by. Please go to gonarrative.com, check out the resources that are there, and download that first chapter. We trade for your email, and you can buy the book up on Amazon, and then let me know what story you're trying to tell and how it's going. I'm excited to hear what story you're going to tell tomorrow. Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.